Hello, my friends, and welcome to Fear into Faith. This is our Miracles, Signs, and Wonders edition. And we have a story today about a 3.5-year-old girl. She was nonverbal at 3.5. And there was a day where this little girl had seizures and stuff happened to her, high fever, and mom, dad both terrified that they were going to lose their little girl. Hashtag but God. God intervened, and I can't wait for you to hear this incredible miracle story today with Erin Mansour. I got it right.
You got it right. Yeah.
How are you doing, my friend?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm excited to be here with you. Thank you so much for letting us use your story about your daughter. Just really appreciate it. And before we jump in there, tell people watching just a little bit about you, where you're from.
Well, my name is Erin Mansour, like Summer said. I live here in South Carolina, in Charleston, with my husband and my four amazing children, one of whom we're going to discuss today.
How long you been
Uh,
married?
we're we've been married for almost 19 years. Just
Wow.
crazy to me.
Yeah, and I've seen your videos on social media. Not only have you guys been married for 19 years, you guys are like, can I say it, disgusting in love? Like, so cute in love, right? You and Chris, you have a lot of videos, stuff like that you guys post. You want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so my husband and I are actually full-time content creators. We have a collective audience of about 2.1, 2.2 million.
Oh, just a few
Um,
people watch you guys. Just a
just
couple.
a few. Yeah, just a couple. We pulled the analytics the other day, and we average about 1 million views a day,
Wow.
right? Like that's kind of like not too much pressure at all. But what I've learned is that, it's all God. All of it is all God. And just like at one point, Chris and I were not always sickening and still have our moments where we aren't, because that's the truth. We're very open and honest about having had marriage issues and marriage problems. I've also learned that God can redeem all things, including in the social media. So we really make it our mission to bring positivity and just humor and inspiration when we do our videos, and then infuse Jesus in all the ways that we can.
I love it. My favorite videos that you guys do are anytime you guys dance. Dancing together, slow dancing, or the newest hip hop moves. I mean, you guys can move and shake. How do people find your channel?
So you can find us at TikTok, which is Chris_Erin. You can find us on Instagram, Life with Chris and Erin, YouTube, Life with Chris and Erin, and then Facebook, Life with Chris and Erin Mansour, Chris McNally, or Strike Fitness.
All right, I think one of those they'll be able to find you. I highly recommend that
Find
you
us
guys check.
all.
I highly recommend you guys check out their video. I feel like you guys just have the joy of the Lord. Sometimes they're quirky and fun. Sometimes Erin forgets that sunglasses are on her head or things like that. They do. They just keep it real. They keep it fun. And there's not enough positivity on social media. And I'm so grateful
No.
that God connected us. Erin actually reached out to me on social media when we had this whole explosion in our Bible project. And the Lord's like, I want you to go get 100,000 people for year 4. And she messaged me, you guys, and was like, hey, we have a platform and we love Jesus. How can we help you? So I just want you to know her heart. She's an incredible woman that just really wants people to know Jesus, wants to be used by God. And if you're not a social media influencer, I don't think you can even begin to understand the level of attacks. Everybody wants to walk in somebody else's shoes until they see what actually happens in somebody else's shoes. We just watched this movie. Erin, you got to watch it with your kids. And if you guys are watching, it's called Switched. It's two girls in high school. It's like Mean Girls meets Freaky Friday. and the mean
Okay.
girl and the nerd girl switch places, and it's all about them learning to walk a mile in their shoes. And the girl who's the mean girl has like 4 million followers on social media, but they show behind the scenes. They show that she only eats kale salads and she exercises starting at
Right.
5 in the morning, and that, she doesn't really have a close relationship with her parents. It shows all these other things. So, it's a beautiful thing that God's blessed you guys with all these followers. And I know a snippet, and only a small snippet, of what you guys go through, the level of attacks and stuff that happen. So thank you for continuing to press on through all of the hard and challenging things.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's a big responsibility, and I think you have to really know your identity in Christ because of all the crap that gets said about you,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I have like, what is it, 100th of the amount of followers you do, and some days I wake up and I'm like, who is this person? Why did they say something so mean? They don't even know me at all. So I can only imagine what it's like for you guys. 4 kids? How old are the kiddos?
So we have our youngest who is 12, Memphis who is 13, Maddie who is 18, and then Dylan who's 28.
Oh, okay, yeah. Dylan, I forgot you had one that's also older.
Yeah,
So good. So
yeah.
3 at home still?
3 at home, and Dylan is about 5 miles away.
Nice, nice. All right, well, let's chat. Besides you having a passion to help us get people to be in God's word, why why did you agree to let us air this miracle story?
Because when it happened years and years and years ago, Memphis is 13, so it happened when she was 3, so it's been 10 years. I remember when it happened, knowing just almost right away that God was gonna use it to bring glory to what had happened and what Memphis had been through. And so I feel like there are just times where in life, even if you don't feel comfortable doing something, if the Lord has put it in on your heart and it's something that you feel called to do, you do it because God loves obedience, right? Like that's his favorite thing.
So good. That is his favorite thing.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Have you shared this story before? Is this the first time?
I have shared it on minor levels, like, just like to a few friends and close family members, but I've never like done this.
Wow. Love it. Well, before we get into Memphis's story, which is so amazing, were you always a believer?
No. Mm-mm. No. So I actually went through a period in my life. Well, as a child, I was raised to go to church, and I was baptized. But then when I went through all the things with the abuse and the addiction and then the teenage pregnancy and just I've been through a lot. Like I have a very long story of, the drugs, addiction, alcoholism, all of it.
Wow.
I
How old were you when that started?
well, I was abused when I was 14 for the first time. But then I was abused again when I was 15.
Oh my gosh, this is the
Um
most horrible place to take a break. But we're going to take a break and we'll be right back right after this, my friend. We are back. Welcome back, my friend. Oh my gosh, I apologize. I think that might have been the worst cliffhanger of ever. I did not want to have to cut Erin off, but she was talking about just how she had gone through sort of, crisis of faith in her life. She mentioned being abused starting at age 14. And then I had to cut you off. I'm so sorry.
it's okay. It's totally okay. Um so I was my first time I was sexually abused was 14. I didn't realize until recently that I was also being abused for quite some time when I was 15 and my boyfriend was 26. Yeah, I had no idea that I was being abused by him as well. So I've been through a lot of sexual abuse, but not just the sexual abuse. I then ended up getting addicted to drugs and alcohol. And by the time I was 17, I was drug addicted, alcohol addicted, and pregnant.
Wow.
So I ended
With
up
that
going
boyfriend? Was it with the same guy or a different guy?
no, I don't even, yeah, because after getting abused, I became completely promiscuous. So, but this was actually, I mean, I know who her father was, but through all of that, then having a child at the age of 17, being completely obese from the pregnancy and getting sober, because I got completely sober during my pregnancy. Like, as soon as I was like, okay, I'm having this child, it was it, like cold turkey, everything. I started to really question a lot of things. And I remember, oh, severely, 100 pounds heavier
Wow.
than I am now.
You're such a tiny woman, and for people who don't know, I mean, you're really well known for your fitness. You
Fitness,
and your husband being very physically fit. I can't even picture that. Oh my goodness.
100 pounds heavier. Yeah. And so a lot, like, and then of course, on top of all of that, very debilitating anxiety, very debilitating. And my obesity ended up kind of like launching my eating disorder. So it was just like, I mean, literally like a mess. And then that time I started questioning God and I started really looking to other things. So I, kind of went on a journey to figure out exactly what my faith was, what it looked like. And along the way, I did a lot of things. I did Wicca. I did the Unitarian, which again, I'm not putting any of that down. Like any, it wasn't for me. And then I ended up, my friend, who is also my PA slash doctor, she helped me meet Jesus actually really in her office. Like she was ministering to me when I was going in for panic attack after panic attack after panic attack. And so she led me to Christ and I got saved again and I never looked back
Wow, what a great story in your PA's office.
in my PA's office.
How
Yeah.
did she do that? She had to be under the radar, probably.
She's now she has her own practice. At the time, it was actually she was working for somebody else, but she just she was relentless in the pursuit of helping me to and I would ask questions and she would just answer them. She was just such a great and still to this day. I mean, this is so much of the work that she does. So I always say she's not just a PA for like the body. She's literally like ministering God and medicine all the time.
Oh, so good. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I
She's a
love
really
that.
great person.
And so, how many years ago was that? When did that happen?
This was when I was 24. So,
So,
yeah,
before you met Chris.
before I met Chris, yes. When I came into the relationship with Chris, I was very firmly planted on the ground with Jesus.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. All right. And so you have four kids. Memphis is which one? Third? Fourth?
She's the third. She's
Third.
13. Youngest girl.
Youngest girl. Wow. Is it two boys, two girls?
So three girls and one boy.
Three girls and a boy. Okay. Okay. I think I remember that now. Yeah. Three girls and a
Yeah.
boy.
And
Because I got
Memphis
three girls.
is, well, Memphis is special though, because I've had two miscarriages to get her. And she was the only one that we tried to have.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And so you have Memphis, and I already mentioned that she wasn't verbal until 3.5. Take us back to when you started realizing something was going on with her.
Well, I knew immediately that something wasn't right with her. But at 4 months, I was like, okay, I need to take her to the doctor because her head was tilted. And it was, just kind of like that. I don't know. It was a weird tilt. And so I would take her to the doctor and they just kept telling me everything was fine. She had an x-ray, everything was clear. And then I finally at 9 months switched doctors. And when the doctor came in, I'll never forget, he looked at her and he was like, okay, so she has congenital torticollis. And I was like, that's what I thought. because I had done a lot of studying, but I had just kept getting told I was wrong. So he told me, like, we need to get her into physical therapy. And thankfully, her head wasn't really misshapen, because a lot of times with torticollis, the head will have like a misshape and they'll have to wear a helmet. But she didn't have to do that. She just immediately started physical therapy. And it was brutal, because to have to hold a baby down and pull their neck, because what happens with torticollis is one of the sternocleidomastoid muscles is shorter and tighter than the other. So I think it's also because Memphis was my longest baby, and I'm 5'2", and Memphis came out at 22 inches.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I think that she was probably in there like that. But then what I started to notice was, even at 13 months, I was like, how come she isn't talking? So I started going back to the doctor for that, and I started to address that. And they were like, well, she's got two older sisters. They're just talking for her. And I'm like, no, no, no. Something is like, she's not talking. Like, something's not okay. And so we ended up getting an interview with BabyNet when she was 14 months old. And we had an early interventionist. And the early interventionist, when she interviewed Memphis, thank God Memphis that day had an epic meltdown. And so she immediately qualified for BabyNet, which was such a saving grace, because at the time we were on Medicaid and did not have the funds to do a lot of things. So anyway, Memphis started BabyNet, and her early interventionist said to me, she was like, one day she pulled me aside and she's like, Mama, I know you're trying so hard, and I know that this is brutal for you, but this is literally the smartest baby I've ever had. And this is not an autism thing. This is not a like mental delay, like all these things that I can see that you're running through your mind of concern. She's like, it's not, because she said it's crazy. Memphis's receptive language is so high, meaning that she understood things even at 14 months old that 3-year-olds wouldn't understand.
Wow, wow, wow. Okay, I'm going to
And
pause you
so,
right there. We'll take a break. We'll hear the next part about Memphis's story when we come back right after this. Welcome back, my friend. We're interviewing Erin about her daughter, Memphis, and you were talking about how you got her into BabyNet, and the lady there is like, no, she is a smart baby. She's responding at 14 months to all of these things. And then what happens?
so what happens next is that a lot of prayer and a lot of sleepless nights, and then a lot of times where I'm just crying myself to sleep, because I'm sitting here and I've got this 14-month-old and I don't understand why she can't speak. And she was at 22 months, she was finally diagnosed with apraxia. And so, doing a lot of research on apraxia and knowing that some children with apraxia never speak, but there's always, with those apraxic children, there's that, well, how do they really belong? Because they're not deaf, because they can hear. So, and it it's kind of like they're not accepted by the deaf community in a lot of ways, because they can hear even though they can't speak. And so it was like, how is life going to look like for her? And so, at 22 months, they finally gave us the apraxic diagnosis and they started the speech therapy. So she was in speech therapy from the time she was 24 months up until she was about 3.5.
Wow,
So
so a
one day,
year of going through this. Oh, your
a
poor heart.
year, yeah, a little bit longer than that. And at this time, she had started to say things like, duh, duh. Like, she could do things like that, but it still wasn't a lot. No. So we had gone to the beach. It was me, Memphis, her baby brother, Jagger, and my oldest. And we were on the way home from the beach, and I'll never forget because I know it was prophetic moment. I had to pull over at the bathroom at a gas station, and I had Dylan stay in the car with the kids. And I remember in the gas station, I had a full blown out of body like panic attack. Like I was sweating. I felt like I was like convulsing. It was just such a crazy. I was in the bathroom and I was like, Jesus, I just need you to get me home. Like, because I don't know how I'm going to get my kids home. So I was in the bathroom. I was trying to breathe through all of it. And then I got into the car and I looked at Memphis and I was like, something isn't right. And I got out of the car, went over to her car seat, felt her head, and I was like, she's burning up. She has a fever. So then I was really like panic stricken. So I got us home and I got us all into the house and I started a bath for Memphis to put her in to start to try to bring the fever down. And she had been in the tub for about 2 to 3 minutes when all of a sudden I looked at her and she just went blank. It was like it was like I was looking into nothing, like in nothingness. Like she was gone. And then she just like fell limp. So I picked her up and I was like, Memphis, Memphis. And she was starting to gag and like throw up, but it wasn't coming out. And she was turning blue. It's honestly like talking about this still to this day. It's like, oh. So I opened her mouth and I was trying to sweep the trachea. And when I did that, she bit down on my nail and she was just gnawing it. Like, but she wasn't awake. Like I couldn't, like it was, but she was lockjawed on my finger. She bit through my nail beds. So, I have my daughter on the phone with 911 and she's, screaming. I had thrown my son into his bedroom and closed the door because he was 2. And I was just literally like pounding on Memphis. And at one point, she just passed completely out. She was
You
like
said you
just
were
out.
like praying and stuff too, right? You were just
Yes. So when she went limp, when she just went limp, I just was like, there's nothing else I can do except just call on God. And so I have my hands on her and I'm begging God. And I am begging God in a way that I have never begged God. And I am just begging God to please come, please heal her, please, because I thought she was dead. It was so scary. And I was saying the Lord's Prayer and I was just praying over her. And I just kept saying the Lord's Prayer over and over and over. And I was shaking her. And I finally had gotten her downstairs because I was waiting for EMS because she was completely just out. Like she was out. And I prayed the Lord's Prayer one more time, had her in my hands, wet and naked. And then all of a sudden, she just opened her eyes and looked up at me. And I was like, thank you, Jesus. Thank you. And right after that, the paramedics got to the house, of course. So thank God my daughter witnessed all of that. And to this day is still, we talk about it and we're like, don't talk about it. But so they ended up rushing her to the hospital downtown, did an EEG, did all the tests, everything was fine. And about 2 weeks later, I had taken her to speech therapy at the school. And I remember going in to get her, and her little speech therapist was like, did you notice that Memphis is speaking? And I'm like, I did. And all of a sudden it occurs to me, and I'm like, wait a minute, Memphis is talking. And then it's like, she went a few more times, and I met with the therapist again, and the therapist is like, I don't understand what's going on. She's like, it's like she doesn't even need speech therapy anymore. They said that it ended up being a phonological delay, not apraxia. And so here she is, she's 13 now. And I remember saying to myself, I'll never ever tell this child to stop talking. Like, I don't care. And the thing is that now she has so many words, and you would never know that she was speech delayed ever.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. I know that you had told me when all this was happening in the bathroom that it almost just felt like it was a demonic attack, that like it just felt so dark and heavy. And when you had shared the story with me, I mean, it seems like she had been on this path for 3.5 years, and then the enemy was like, that's going to take her out now. And you prayed and everything. And not only did she get healed out of that moment, they couldn't find anything that was wrong. It's 10 years later now. There's still no explanation for what was wrong. And then also, she gets healed of all the other things as well. So I just
Yeah.
love that. I think that's beautiful. How did we have like 1 minute left? Erin, how did this strengthen your faith after that moment?
I can't even put it into words. You know, knowing that I know God was there holding me the whole time, and I know He was holding her. And I know that one thing for sure is when you have a faith that is unshakable in God and you call to Him, I really believe He answers. I really do. But I think it's these stories that you hear. It's when you are so vulnerable and you are so open. And it's like, no, I'm commanding you, Jesus, right now in your name to come and be that father that you tell us you are, that we can access at any time. And so I just, that's one of those stories that when I'm in a storm or in a place that I can't really, I guess, figure out, I just remember like all the things Jesus has done to bring me to where I'm at now. And
So
that's a
good.
huge one.
So good. Thank you so much for putting that story in the book and for being here and letting
Thank
us interview
you.
you. And I love that there's no medical way that could explain any of that. And here we are 10 years later, perfectly healthy, very talkative 13-year-old girl. So thank you for blessing our
Thank
audience with your
you.
story. And thank you, my
I really
friends, for
appreciate that.
watching. Yeah, thanks for watching, and I pray that you just see that God still moves. He is a God of miracles, and in your desperate hour, you can cry out to Him. You can cry out to Him. He is there for you, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.